Well, welcome everybody to Earth Nouveau, where today we are exploring human design with Gary Coppola. This is Gary's first time on Earth Nouveau, so we're all happy to have him here and see what he has to share with us and what we can learn today. So Gary lives in Knoxville, Tennessee, which is where I live. He is well studied in human design, Chinese medicine, and other modalities. He teaches classes on several topics like human design, yoga, qigong, and others. He has a diverse service offering, including Reiki, quantum energy healing, space setting, clearing, and tarot and I Ching readings. So I met Gary at the Sacred Owl and Salt Room here in Knoxville, a shop that's opened up to bring community together and people of similar minds. And I know that he goes between other metaphysical groups in Knoxville, sharing his knowledge and his frequency with everybody. So welcome, Gary, and very excited to hear what you have to say. And I think almost all of us have pulled our charts and we're ready to learn more about ourselves.
Sure, that's good. And I would say I'm a student of human design. I've been maybe the past year or so just became fascinated when I first learned of it through the Astro Hour podcast. Katie Cornelius, a local practitioner, was on, and that was the first I've heard of human design, and really just dived right in and listening to every kind of podcast, studying what I can, and I really find it very helpful. If I had been experimenting with following my my strategy and authority, and whenever you can go back to that, it really does resonate and really helps. And you know when you're in alignment, and just having the awareness that comes. There's a lot of things you see that you kind of, oh, that explains why I've always done this, or why this didn't work, even though theoretically it should have, and you're just not acting according to your design, and it really does come through. Does anybody have a specific question or something they'd like to start with, or a comment or thing on their chart, maybe something you're not clear on?
Just for the people watching that aren't familiar with human design, can you kind of explain like what it is and what it can tell you about yourself?
Sure. Human design is a combination of astrology, the I Ching, Kabbalah, the chakra system. It was received, a guy named Ra Aharu received these downloads in 1987, and kind of like sat down for an extended period of time and just channeled all this information into a workable pattern. And there's a whole chart. It's a body graph, like everybody that's downloaded probably has one in front of them. And there are different energy centers there are 9 energy centers. It's kind of like the chakra system, is like basically split into 9 centers, and that some are defined, some are undefined. Like if you look at the chart, the ones that are colored are open or undefined, and the ones that are colored are defined. And the thing where human design is helpful, there are different types, personality types, and they function differently. So if, like, I'm a manifesting generator, so I have a defined sacral, and that affects the way I make decisions and processes information. A simple way of summing it up, like I'd respond better to an either or yes no question, where someone else might respond to an open-ended question. So the advantage of human design is it helps you communicate with people if you understand the way they process information, that everybody doesn't necessarily think things the same way. And something that also helps, it really teaches you to trust the way things feel in your body, to follow that. The mind is to process information, but doesn't really know what to do or necessarily make a authentically based decision. It's kind of like you can debate something endlessly in an endless loop mentally, and or you can just convince yourself pretty much anything you're somewhat inclined to believe. But if you really listen to those feelings in your body, that's usually the initial action, almost like guidance from the higher self, that if you know what to look for and how to follow it based on your body type, on your personality type, that would really, it really does simplify the decision-making process. And when experimenting with it, like I've noticed just how much better it feels. And when you're in alignment, things just seem to fall into place.
Very much so. That's a great description and breakdown. I'm more familiar like with the gene keys than I am with human design, just because that's what I got started with. Looking at mine, so I'm a generator. In the profiles, it says that I'm like a 2/4, which in my activation sequence of the gene keys, my lines are 2 and 4. Is that how that mirrors, or what can you tell us about the lines?
Yes, yes. The gene keys are like a direct like offshoot of human design. Richard Rudd was one of Ra's original students, and the gene keys, the 64 gene keys, are the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching that are like elaborated on and expanded upon. So the lines, the 2/4. Then that would be the same in the gene keys or human design, and that's the second line, like the I Ching hexagrams, the lines are counted from the bottom up. So the second and the fourth, and I'm a 2/4 manifesting generator. So like I know this off the top of my head. And that's the thing too, like when you first get into human design, there's so much information. Just concentrate on your own chart. That was the best advice I had, I think, from a podcast, was just learn the things that apply to you before you try to understand other people and get confused by cross-referencing. And but the and what that is, like if you look at your human design chart, there's I mean, I have mine here, it's all marked up and everything, but the column on the right, the personality or conscious side, there's a bunch of numbers, and after that number there's a decimal point. The number after the decimal point is the line. So if you're a 2/4, that means there's going to be mostly twos on the left side and mostly fours on the right side. And that's the predominant I Ching lines that were or gene key lines that were influenced. And to make it further confusing, in human design, they're called energy gates, but they were predominantly at the time. The column on the right is the time of your birth. The column on the left is the 3 months before your birth. And each gene key is associated with a planet. And there's an affirmist where this can be tracked. It's something that can be downloaded, or there's apps that give you the current transits. So that's planetary transits. So every 6 days will shift into a different gene key, and every day will be influenced by a different line. And that's kind of where those numbers come from. And then there are different profile types with each line. I have to look up others, but the 2/4, which I know, because that's a lines that we share. The 2 is referred to the hermit, the 4 as the opportunist, and it's a vague description. The 2 line is kind of the first number is how you are, but others may not realize that. So like the hermit thing means, we need alone time to recharge, but not a full isolation, but we do need that downtime, the alone time to re-energize. And like a common thing with the 2 profile is we tend to have natural talents or gifts that are second nature, and we're unaware of that it's anything special until somebody points it out. The 4 is referred to as opportunists. Things come to us through other people, through our support group, through our networking. And the 4 line is kind of how you're seen. A very vague comparison would be to call the first line like one's sun sign, and the second one like one's rising sign, for those familiar with astrology. And that And that just influences like, just life lessons and the way things come to you and the way you do things. And that's like, you can elaborate with each one. But
I just had a quick question about that. So
Sure.
when you're talking about the lines and the planet, so you're talking about these numbers right here,
Yes,
right? Either
yes,
under
exactly.
personality. And
Right.
so
So for example, mm,
one of those numbers would be like, if I were a 1-3, the ones would show up after the dot here.
yes, the number after the dot, like the 2-7 is the gene key or gate, and that's one of those little colored in circles on the chart, and that's where that comes from. Like the top line there, that's the sun, and um the dot after it, the 1 is the I Ching line. So like the 1 is kind of like a an investigator. You have to like figure things out, find things out for yourself. It's I've heard it described as like the person that looks past the first page on Google, or really dives into things. But yes, that's based on the number after the decimal point is the line.
So,
Thank you.
sometimes we think of things as being like you look at it once and then you're done. But if this corresponds with like your transits and what's taking place, really you could use this as a frequent tool, like a daily tool based on what's going on. Is that right?
Yes, because the energy that's available to us like changes and can be enhanced. So, like if you look at the chart and you see where there's a lot like a channel, a line between two of the energy centers that's maybe halfway colored in, and the other half is white or open. So when that colored spot is activated by planetary alignment, you have access to that energy. So your chart never changes. It's how you're born. It's a natal chart, but the energies available are affected by the transits. So, for example, a undefined energy center, one of the squares or triangles on the chart that's white or uncolored, will is like that because there's not a complete channel. Like for one to be colored in, the line connecting it to another one has to be completely colored, and that's what makes it defined. So when you have one that's open, or if it's like half a line, which is called a hanging gate, and that other white one is energized, you have access to that energy, and then that energy center that was open becomes energized and receives the energy. It's still open, but it's receiving the current things. So you kind of have access to an energy that you don't normally have naturally. So yes, the planetary transits do affect things. It is like an ongoing process, just like like astrology. It's directly related.
Absolutely. Anybody
And
have any questions so far? Go ahead, Gary.
no, I was just going to say, I mean, I know I'm rattling stuff off, so stop me if you're not clear on like energy centers or what they do or how they affect it. When one is open, that just means you're receptive to that energy. Like a simplified thing, if one is colored in or defined, you're kind of established and consistent and steady with that. Whereas when it's open, you may be influenced by the person you're around, especially if that one's defined, which quite often is very complementary in a relationship and really works well. And you can also pick up negative conditioning that way. It's almost like a filter. I think Robin Wynn, who's an author on human design, refers to it as like a God portal, where just it's like you have like the open possibilities. But yeah, I just want to like if there's any questions about like channels or energy centers or the terms I'm using, I'll elaborate if it's not clear.
Well, I have a question. So I just, I put my chart as a background so we could sort of use it as a reference today. But we all know about the chakras and flow and stuff like that. But so I'm just looking at this chart, and I would imagine that like here would be the crown chakra, here would be the third eye, here would be the throat, here the heart. this, it doesn't look
the-
like, I'm
r-
just a little confused about these little corner pieces. So
r-
could you
right.
describe the way that works?
Yeah, I'll go through them. It'd be good if we can keep your chart on the screen while I'm talking. So the uppermost triangle is the head, which right would basically be the crown chakra. Then the lower is referred to as the ajna, Agna, and that's kind of like the third eye. The square beneath that is the throat. The green diamond in the center, which right would correspond with the heart. It's referred to as the G center or identity center. And then the little white triangle just below it, off to right, you're pointing there. It's my right, it's your left. But that's the heart or ego center. Then the tan triangle kind of below that is the solar plexus. The triangle on the opposite side of the chart that's also tan is the spleen or awareness center. And the red one in the center, that's the sacral, or and the one below that is the root. Now, because your sacral is defined, that's why you're a generator. Like a generator and manifesting generators have a defined sacral, and a manifesting generator also has a channel from a motor such as the spleen, or rather the solar plexus or sacral or heart. And there would be a line going to the throat for a manifesting generator. And most things that apply to generators also apply to manifesting generators. They're very similar. Maybe 35% of the population are generators, and 35% are manifesting generators, and are, we're in alignment when we're satisfied, and we're not in alignment when we're frustrated. And part of the problem in general is that so many generators and manifesting generators are frustrated because they're out of alignment, and that causes like a collective, heaviness. I'm going off with the questions, but yes, that's all the center. So it's kind of like just like a split with some of the energies, but off of the traditional 7 chakras.
You just mentioned, I've got something here now. You've just mentioned the frustration of the generator, and I think we can all relate to that one, right? Frustration of the generator.
Right.
And as you were pointing out, sacrum up to the throat. So we're working a lot down there, really. But then the question is, how can we take the frustration away from the generator?
Right. Now that goes with your strategy and the design. So like for a generator, strategy is to respond to things. So you kind of like wait for something to respond to if you don't know what to do. Like I personally, as a manifesting generator, have like in the past started a business and couldn't figure out what went wrong. And I was just approaching it in out of alignment, like kind of trying to initiate, which was what a manifestor does, as opposed to waiting to respond. And a simple like rule of thumb for a defined sacral generator or manifesting generator is kind of to you want to be doing like work, a project, whatever, something that really lights you up and excites you. And then when you have that, authentic, just joy from what you're doing, it automatically accesses that sacral energy. But when you're doing something that's out of alignment, it leads to feelings of frustration. Like they say, like with the generator, if you're making a decision, if it's not a, oh, hell yes, it's no. Like you have to really be enthusiastic and have to learn to apply that in a, functional way. But that has to do with just like the alignment of just kind of following that strategy of waiting to respond, and in such a way with things that light you up and really, and that's the thing too with generally, like anyone with a defined sacral, a manifesting generator or a generator, you will get that gut feeling, that feeling in the sacral chakra when something is right or is wrong, and that is something to and that's where one's authority comes in. Like on your chart, there's probably a little line that mentions your authority. So if you have a sacral authority, that's listening to that gut feeling. Most people, myself included, and that's anyone with a defined solar plexus, has an emotional authority. So the way I process information is I decide based on emotions, but not spontaneous emotions in the moment. I have to ride the emotional wave. And when I say I mean anyone with an emotional authority, is to ride the emotional wave, the high and low, and then make a decision when you're in the neutral place, kind of like sleep on it. But if you have to make a decision, if I have to decide immediately, I listen to the gut, go with the sacral feeling. So that'll help you learn how to decide or how to respond to things. And there are different authorities. There's splenic and ego authority, and that just affects the way you process and know how to listen to your body to, to intuitively tune in to what is authentically right for oneself.
Would you say, Gary and everyone else, would you say that within one lifetime we can change, we would change our profile? Because that what you're explaining works for me, what used to work for me as a generator, but it doesn't work for me anymore. And my birth chart has not changed.
Right. That's constant. Yeah, I couldn't really say the specifics of why that is, and this is like a template. It's by no means like a hard and fast rule. You must do this. You have to. It's in no way, dogmatic or restrictive. It's just made as a tool. In fact, Madeline Evergreen, who has a really good website and podcasts and offers free info on human design, puts out a video called How Human Design Can Ruin Your Life. Like if you become obsessed and that's like astrology. Like I know people who use their astrological sign as an excuse for dysfunctional behavior, and it's just an indicator. But yeah, I really couldn't say specifically.
I wasn't going to question the concept of it, because I think it's great. I was just wondering if there is, in your experiences, have you, even maybe with yourself, that you're saying, hang on a second, this doesn't work for me anymore, as I've been going through all this deconditioning and all of that, and there might be, and I think this is maybe where you really, I have actually by far too little, knowingness about this, but where you need to go into the specific, like the gates, the ones you've mentioned before, and see how they redefine themselves, throughout.
I can add one thing. So one thing that I really loved about what Richard Rudd said in his introduction to the Gene Keys is that, like, your profile is what your profile is. But if you just gravitate to a particular gene key, or if that gene key is what you want to become, you can be anything that you want to be. But you have to look at the shadow work of that and do a lot of contemplation and reflection to see, like, if what I'm doing right now isn't working for me, and this describes how where I want to be and what I want my life's work to be, or what I want my evolution to be, use the shadow details and the evolutionary work for the gene key that you want to be, and just become it. I mean, we can become whatever we want. We just have to do the work to get there. So play around with, if you wanted to try to be a manifesting generator, if you want to try to be a projector, then look at what that requires and be it. I mean, that's what we are, right? We're shapeshifters.
Richard also says that was his frustration with the gene keys, is that he felt it was too rigid, and that he believes we can evolve. That is our like we are always constantly evolving. And so as we evolve, we can, like in the Gene Keys, you have a shadow, gift, and the city. Not that you ever get away from any of those, but that you're always on some level of that spectrum. So that's
I
just
had-
my understanding.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
had
yeah,
a question about the same. Did you see people with this type of dynamics who, as by graph, would be one type of person, but by behavior, as you know, it's a different person? Did you see that kind of change?
I haven't really like observed anyone else enough to really say for sure. Although I have heard from like other people that are new to human design, saying how like they've experienced things. Like I have a friend who's a manifester, and when someone like a manifestor or a projector with an undefined sacral maybe follows the societal norm to work like a generator as opposed to working according to their design, it often manifests as like a burnout or health issues like in the 30s or 40s. And I do know people that have experienced this from like doing that. But as far as the transformation thing, I couldn't really comment on anybody else. I've only really been like just observing people a little bit. Like I have charts for all my friends and associates and clients that are receptive. But as far as any long-term changes, that is something to bring up. I'm involved with a couple of like monthly discussion groups, and that would be an interesting thing to ask different people. But I do find the like deep diving into the gene keys. I mean, I have the book right there. It's really really has been helpful in understanding things, and I just use a template as to where the sun is transiting and make it a point to study that for that 6 days, as well as like different interpretations of the I Ching that correspond, just to see the the effects of the energy. But I would imagine that would be a thing to experiment with, like try the authority of a different type and see if that resonates with you. Like just because it's on paper doesn't mean it's right. There should be some flexibility to it. Like a lot of the stuff that's non-traditional, I do kind of get that. Like I highly recommend following Richard Rudd's. He puts out an excellent podcast every 6 days. The Gene Keys is his website, and yeah, it's definitely something to contemplate. And if there's, especially if you notice like an area that seems to be affected, like an energy center on your chart that you think needs to be active or is overactive, and studying the gates you have active with it or that you don't have activated, and diving into the gene key and, like you said, experimenting. Maybe this is the shadow issue that is working with this, or the gift I'm not acknowledging, or so. Yeah, it's just an endless contemplative process. But I just like having the template to work with. It gives me like a frame of structure and then somewhere to start, somewhere to look. I mean, that's like my personal experience.
Exactly right, especially for somebody just getting started, because you know what you want, but you don't know how to get there. And so it gives you a basic roadmap to get started and understand some of the things that you need to work on to progress forward.
I would
Yeah.
say I have struggled with I'm a projector. And so my strategy is to wait for the invitation. It's like, what? Because while I'm a projector, I do have a whole lot of energy, so I can look a lot like a generator. I recognize that I'm not a generator in a lot of ways. So I've learned that about myself. Like I need more rest, lots of things. But the whole strategy of waiting for an invitation outside of myself has not sat with me as an empowered, sovereign human being or being. And I heard Tenmayo, that's with the Gene Keys. I heard she's a projector, and I heard her say the ultimate invitation that I'm waiting for is myself, is from myself. That I can get on board with, but I was curious what you thought about it, Gary.
Yeah, that is interesting because I know some other projectors that are like good friends, so we talk about this a lot, and they kind of struggle with the same thing. It's like, yeah, I don't want to interrupt or interject something, but this is appropriate to say this right now. And if I wait, the whole like thought and significance of this is going to pass. So it's not interrupting or projecting my opinion. It's appropriate, and that's an excellent way of describing it. I really like that. I have to like share that with the invitation, so from an authentic place, like from the guidance of your higher self, that yes, it is appropriate to interject, and that is the invitation. Because I do, I know others that experience that frustration. I mean, I don't firsthand, but I would have trouble too waiting sometimes. So I can certainly empathize. But yeah, that was very well put. Yes.
Well, if you even think about that from the generator's perspective, Ra always called them slaves, which I always bristled, when he would say that. Meaning they had, to me, that implies all kinds of things. But
I'm sorry,
just
I
to me,
didn't
it
hear,
implies
I didn't hear that, Jen. They called him what? They called them what?
slaves, that the
Slaves.
generators, that 70% of the population are slaves. And that the manifestors, like how he talks about it historically, is there was just manifestors and generators. Manifestors were the rulers, and the slaves acted out the ruler's directions. Like the manifestor gives direction, slaves acted out. And then at some point in the late 1800s, projectors came in. That I kind of lose track of, like why. But projectors are guides, not directors. So is that right? Isn't that right, Gary?
Yes. Yes.
So from a generator's point of view, they're supposed to respond, and it's implied that it's outside, as a slave, if you think about a slave, they're awaiting orders. But really, as we evolve, I think what we've got to realize is that you're waiting to respond from within. You're waiting for your own direction to tell you to act.
Yes, and I do get that sometimes. Like if I try to think what to do, I don't know, but then something will like come to me, and it's like, oh yeah, I do this, and it is a response. So yeah, it is that internal guidance, and I guess maybe knowing what to look for, waiting for that response or that invitation, kind of helps one focus internally onto what it is they need to listen to. I have heard the like the slave, the worker bee analogy, and that's the thing with Karen Curry Parker does a lot of stuff. Like she has like quantum human design, is also a student of Ra, and I like her take on a lot of things. I do find her information useful. She uses different names for the different types, which makes something that's confusing more confusing, but it also helps a little bit because, like for example, she'll call a she calls manifestors initiators, and I kind of get that because when someone's new to human design, it's like, oh, manifestors. Well, I'm not a manifestor, so I can't manifest, and that's not what it means. Everyone can manifest, but and like God, she'll call instead of generators, because of like the slave, the worker thing, she calls generators alchemists. She
I
calls
love that.
right. Yeah. It does. It's more of a right. They bring things together to create a result, and she'll call manifesting generators. And again, you got to think, oh well, they can manifest, but I can't. So she calls manifesting generators time benders because of our tendencies to simplify things. We're known to skip steps and go faster than a generator, and half the time have to go back and do it right. But it's like part of the dynamic. So in many ways, I do like her different takes on things, and because a lot of like traditional people don't like one or the other, but I find all the variations helpful and informative. You go through and see what resonates, and it's very helpful to just have a different explanation.
What does she call a projector?
I have to look that up, but I have her book right here. Let me see. Oh, here we go to types. All right, generators and alchemists. A projector. All right, time bender. A projector is an orchestrator.
Orchestra.
Yeah, to intuitively understand how energy works and flows.
Do you want to show us the title of the book?
Oh yeah, sure.
The
Can you see that?
Quantum
The
Human.
the Encyclopedia of Quantum Human Design by Karen Curry Parker. And it's very well set up too. It's very easy to reference. And then there's a specific section with one page on each gate or gene key, and it explains all the different channels and their significance, and it's just very well laid out and easy to follow. Yeah, I find it very helpful. And there is a lot of stuff is available on there. There's a website called the Jovian Archive, Jovian, and that's an official like the official traditional in Ra's original tradition, and they have a lot of free downloads, including like the Affirmus I mentioned and Ra's interpretation of the I Ching. So yeah, there are a lot of like very good free resources. Robin Wynn, Winn, was Karen Curry Parker's like student, and she's written several really good books, like one especially that explains the energy centers, and you can download it for free from her website. Robin Wynn, Winn. She has 2 books that are free downloads, and they're like 400-page books, very informative.
Yeah, because I think personally, with the energies we are finding ourselves in, the era we are finding ourselves in, where there's so much unknowingness and there's so much chaos, and we're being invited not to respond. It's going to be difficult for the projector and for the generator. That's what I can perceive myself as a difficulty, to not respond and really go the inner journey. And the inner journey, it takes you almost away from generation for a little bit. So that's why this level of unknowingness throws all those profiles a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would say like with that, like you said, like with the response, whether you should or should, and that's the thing, to follow the authority, like how it feels in the gut, how it feels emotionally, or but yeah, it is right. It's like developing that awareness of when it does feel right and when it doesn't.
Well, and Martina, I was thinking about your question earlier about how looking at your chart, the way that you've changed, right? And I mean, I think that with your Western astrology chart or any type of chart that's based on your birth chart, there are things to be aware of, but also to transmute or transcend through. And also look at all of the times that we have a rebirth, right? So when you're going from when you came out of your mother's womb, right? That date, but what was a major rebirth that happened for you? Was it starting the Earth Nouveau Hub? And I wonder if that would, like when we had the astrology show with Trent and Amanda that came on, they did a chart for the Earth Nouveau Hub. So it was like the birth of this, right? I wonder what that chart would look like.
Absolutely, that's a brilliant idea, and also I think it's you could do it on a daily basis, right? Just take the day, like today I'm reborn, today I had a good day, whatever, and then just see where you're at. And that leads us back to what Jen was saying. I think once we can say that we are able to be all of those particular profiles without a point of view, without, you know, having a trigger, I think then, right, you know, then that's a good measure to say, well, you know, we've mastered something. Absolutely, I like that.
So something you can do with that, like that day when like things felt right, when you just had a good day, that, and you can go back and see where the transits were and maybe notice what were completed or augmented. Because sometimes, like if you have something that's already like a channel that's energized, and then the transits there too, you get like a supercharge of that energy. So that would be a thing to like monitor the alignment on related to specific you know, circumstances or the way things went. But yeah, that's a very good idea to follow, to track that, or to compare it, or to see how it was from this perspective.
And as you guys said, I mean, the structure is amazing. The structure is so profound, you know, it gives us something to work with, no matter where you're at. Exactly. Brilliant.
The first time I saw that chart, I knew it was like, I don't even know how I found it. It was, I don't know, 5 years ago or something. I just saw it and thought, I was just mesmerized by the chart. And now I think it's what I would call a galactic technology.
I was working on my activation sequence doing the Gene Keys retreat, and I was looking back through you know, I first listened to my life's work Gene Key a couple years ago. Well, it came back up. In fact, my computer just started playing it. I had asked a question, and my computer just took the initiative to start playing that for me. So I re-listened to it with an open mind, and I picked up on how many things I had moved past and what was new for me to look at. And I was thinking about how many characteristics and behaviors I have that come naturally, and then what's been adaptive for what I do and where I've been going and where I've put my energy and things like that. And that really is, to me, that's the alchemist, right? It's being able to use our natural trends, but to adapt ourselves through work and through healing and through learning and all those things to become what we want to become. Generator.
Yeah. I could see that you I determine what was instilled or picked up and how that was, and just because it's something that was like conditioned doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad conditioning or a negative thing. It could be I mean, as long as it doesn't interfere with, as long as it doesn't cause frustration and serves a purpose, it's like sometimes that's good. For example, like an open spleen, which is related to open or undefined. It's like a slight difference, but I'm using them interchangeably now. But one could be, it has to do with like fear and instinct. So like I have an undefined spleen, so I may not internally or naturally have any fears, but I pick up some from others, and could be a good thing if you're afraid of something you should be and otherwise wouldn't be, and it's a self-preservation thing. So that could be, or it could be an unreasonable phobia that my mother had that doesn't really bother me, but I think it does because it bothered her. So right, just that awareness, and yeah, like alchemizing the you know, the functional message that does come from some of that, sure. And just knowing where you're going to do that, and even knowing sometimes like I have like a defined head center, which that's only like 30% of the population. So there could also be a tendency with that, like the shadow of that is to be closed-minded or restrictive. And so it's just something to be aware of and, you know, consider. It's like, do I really know that, or do I think I know that and I'm not? So right, you just kind of learn what to work with and where to be aware and what to watch out for. Is that really how I feel, or am I just doing that because that's how the people around me feel? Or so yeah, just knowing where we tend to take on stuff, or where we tend to be more matter of fact and set or established, is just a helpful template for working with things and transforming our energy as as we're called to.
Mhm. Hi, Sandrine.
Hi, Sandrine. Hello.
I have a question. How much precise time of birth influencing chart? How much?
How much did what?
Very precise? Do you need to be very precise with birth time, or a couple hours to?
I've heard it, like if someone doesn't know their time, or isn't quite sure, maybe knows it's morning or afternoon, it's you can run the chart with several different times. Like if you don't know, maybe try like 6 a.m., noon, and 6 p.m. for the day. And sometimes, depending on the transit, sometimes it will make no difference. And sometimes it might be a difference. And then when you look at the difference, you can say, yeah, that is completely not it. And another version might be, oh, yeah, but the noon one totally is me. So you might be able to get a feel for that. So it does vary, but yeah, if you're not sure, I would just put it in with a couple of different variables and see how it comes out, or if it does change. And that's just advice that I've heard from other practitioners. I know there's a specific branch of astrology that they can determine one's birth time if they're not sure. I don't have any experience with it, but I have heard of people having the service.
Wonderful, thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about incarnation crosses? Like, oh, I'm sorry, Alfredo also has his hand up.
Can't hear you, Alfredo. You muted?
It doesn't look like he's muted.
Mhm. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, sweet. Okay. It's just weird like that. Okay. No, that's fine. This will work. I was just curious about because I've read this human design thing before, like maybe a year or two ago, maybe more, but I can relate to a lot of this stuff because I know like I really don't have a drive or motivation to do a lot of things unless I have like that alone time, or like finding my joy to build momentum to do stuff. And once I have that momentum, I can kind of plow through the day real easily. But if I don't have that momentum built up, it's just like pushing through mud, But I was curious about the two voices thing. Like, what do you know anything like more in detail about the two internal two voices I have? It says the definition I have is two voices. I'm just curious what what else you know about that.
And what is that? Where is that listed under? The two voices?
For a manifesting generator that I am, I've seen it
Okay.
before.
Or a manifesting generator, but I'm not clear on the two voices part. Is it like a
I don't know. It was on the chart.
Yeah, there's different like aspects of the chart, like digestion, signature. Well, that would be like the frustration thing, but there are different like senses and environments. So that's, yeah, but I'm not really familiar with that specific one. That's kind of more of yeah, that's something I haven't really gotten to. I know like my stuff with that, with some of the things on the bottom, but I don't really know quite know specifically what that is.
Alfredo, do you mean under definition, like single
Yes.
definition versus double definition?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Definition. Yeah, yes. Well, that has to do with I mean, you have to have the chart in front of you, but like for example, I have a split definition. And I guess it's considered a single split because of like the colored section on the bottom and the top and the way it breaks. But there are different splits, and that has to do with the different connections of the energy centers.
Right on.
And but yeah, I'd really have to like see a chart to really like elaborate, and that's something I haven't really gotten like very deeply into. And I guess the I'm just seeing if there's anything about definitions. I have the some notes here.
So what Carolina wrote was split definition. There are two distinct voices inside your system. And when I look at my chart, I have a single definition, and it says there's easy flow in my chart.
Yeah, I'm the same like that. I've never really looked at it further than how it applies to me. But I have had it explained. But like looking at my daughter's chart, who has like an unusual split, and it was like with hers, she could be either, you know, if she doesn't maintain awareness of things, could either be like excessively driven by either like the lower or upper chakras, like to an extreme, kind of like when there's an imbalance in a chakra system, if you're familiar with that, and someone might be like if their upper chakras are energized and the lowers are not grounded, or so I took it to be sort of a relationship like that, like as far as the split or the two voices. But yeah, I have that single, like that easy flow from the single one, so I that's really an aspect I haven't really explored. You had mentioned incarnation crosses.
Yeah, I was curious about that.
Yeah, you see the way like the incarnation cross, that's like the sun and earth gates when you're born. So like if you look at those columns on either side, like on your chart there, on both sides, the first two numbers, that's the sun and the earth. So the incarnation cross is, well, like mine's 350, 3/50 and 60/56. So the first number is where the sun was on the personality side of when I was born. So that's on the right column. And the second number is where the earth was. So that's where I get my 350. Like yours would be 2738, if I'm seeing that, or 28.
28, yeah.
Yeah, I can barely see it on the screen. I had to use my phone because
Yeah, I know, it's hard to see. So under personality, it's 27.1, 28.1, and then under
Right.
design, it's 41.3, 31.3.
Right. So that's where, right, that's the conscious and unconscious side, and where the sun and earth were. And I have a table here. I'll look up your numbers. You are 27. Do we say 27, 28?
Yeah, 27, 28, and then /41, 31.
Okay, I have a tab, right, 27. 27, 28, 41, 31. That's a right angle cross. And next to it, it says unexpected. Like I have a table there. So, so like I have a right angle cross of the law, which kind of has to do with like following specific guidelines or creating specific guidelines. The unexpected, I don't specifically know how to interpret that. I guess it would somehow involve like a acting or responding to non-conventional things, the way the angle of a cross is determined. Now, so yours is a looking at
I
the
think it said
line.
right angle. Right
Yeah, I was
angle
looking at your
cross
line.
band.
Yeah, it would be a right angle. So a right angle cross means the first number is going to be like 1 to 3, from 1 to 3, which means the lower trigram of the hexagram, of like the numbers after the decimal point. So like the 64 gene keys are all in hexagrams of solid or broken lines. A solid line is a yang line, a broken line is a yin line. So when the first number of the cross, or rather when the first number of your profile is 3 or less, it becomes a right angle cross. If the first angle is 4, and it becomes a juxtaposition, and if the first number is 5 or 6, it's a left angle. Like that's how those are determined. Now, so like you have a left angle cross?
Right angle.
Right angle. Okay, so right angle, your path is like a path of self-discovery, whereas like a juxtaposition is more of a fixed or specific trajectory, and that's a rare alignment. And then the left angle is more of interpersonal destiny. And like that's the thing too, like with the profiles, when the first number is 3 or less, it's usually more of like a personal journey or path, like and personal, like kind of like self-development, whereas like the 5 and 6 is more of a as a first number is more of a like a collective, whether you want to say like mission or objective or focus, kind of like the the outward expression, the way one deals, interacts with others.
Very good.
Thank you. And so, as I'm looking at the 1 and the 3 in my profile, I have a 1/3 profile,
Yes,
and it
right.
says that's the establisher of knowledge and truth. So I
Right.
guess that does reflect back to, the self-discovery, unearthing new things. And
Yeah, it would go that, because like the 1 is an investigator and the 3 is the experimenter. Like the 3 has to learn by doing it, by experiencing it, by trying it. You're not going to take someone's advice. You're going to see for yourself. And like that's kind of the 3, and the 1 is like, yeah, you're going to deep dive into it and you're going to look into this and find out everything you can. So yeah, that would be self-discovery. And with the numbers from the lower hexagram, it would be like that self-knowledge, and cultivation is the path of like the self. Yeah. So right. Yes.
That goes back to the lines. Yeah.
Yes.
So kind of continuing on people's chart, like beyond talking about the incarnation cross, there's like the signature, the not self theme, the digestion. Well, of course, the digestion that starts with what's open and things like that. What does the signature mean? Like mind satisfaction. What does that mean?
Right. Well, like the signature, that means like that's how you're in alignment, how you're following your design. So like it's so like, and I'm the same thing. It's satisfaction, and the not self theme is when you're not in alignment, which is frustration. So um so the signature, right? Like if you're satisfied in the moment, you're following your authority and your design and your you're in alignment. Like so if your signature is satisfaction, it's kind of like feeling satisfied in the moment is indicating you're on the right path. You're doing something that lights you up. And then what is your authority? Is your authority on your chart? It might be a couple of lines above that.
My inner authority is sacral.
Right. So that means you have an undefined solar plexus center, and the sacral is like your way of making a decision, like that feeling in your gut, how that feels, and getting that either hell yes or no. Otherwise it's no. Like you really want that lit up feeling. So just when that initial thing, when it is to follow like the sacral, is just that feeling it in the sacral chakra, and
Absolutely.
you're responding to that.
So if you were starting out a session for somebody that was unfamiliar with human design, what would you focus on first, or what would you tell them is most telling about their chart?
The main thing, the main thing to functionally apply it, I'm just looking at my chart as I say that, is to follow your strategy and your authority. So, like in our case, it's to respond, and that would be the one thing to apply. Like to, when you're in a situation, think about that. Are you initiating this? Are you forcing it? Are you responding? And following your authority. Like in my case, it's emotional. In your case, it's sacral. But I would definitely recommend to follow your strategy and authority, and look for the signature and the not self, to be, in our cases, to be satisfied or not be frustrated. That would be the most basic way to apply it. And other things like that might come into play. For example, if someone might be overworked because they're not following their profile. So if there was a specific thing, I don't specifically like do consultations. I know people who do, like that are like have extensive training. I'll kind of use human design to understand my clients for like Reiki or personal yoga sessions, things like that. If they're open to it, it just kind of helps me communicate with them. So that's how I like apply it. Is it's just like, well, they would respond to this or better, or they would I would work better if I present it like this, or approach it in this way, or offer this suggestion, whereas something else might just be out of alignment. So yeah, they're not going to do this, but they could live with that. That's the most simplest thing. And then I would keep like once somebody learns has their chart to work with, I would refer to it often, and I try to learn specifically about that. Like there's a lot of beginner podcasts that are very helpful. I mentioned earlier Madeline Evergreen, Beginner's Guide to Human Design, and they're very easy to follow, 20-minute podcasts. So if you don't want to listen to the whole series, go to the one about your type, go to the manifesting generator one, go to the one about the 2-4, and you can access it and just pick out the ones that are specifically related to you, and kind of listen to that again. And maybe if you do study the gene keys, like look at your chart, and where you have a full channel where one of those little lines from one square to the other is fully colored in, like study the gene key number that's for each of those, and that'll give you like a little bit, like make it personal, see how it affects you. And another thing, that's where following the gene keys really helps, because like when you don't know where to start, if you understand the transit, so by listening to the gene key, by going to the book, looking it up, it would really help. I think earlier we were talking about, or it was briefly mentioned about like evolutionary processes and things like that, the mutation and just the collective movement. It's like we're actually moving towards a place of more like a collective emotional understanding. But the gene keys really elaborate like that. Like, for example, if you specifically look at the 55th gene key, and really just like read that over. It's about 3 times as long as most of them. There are certain ones that are exceptionally significant as far as the info on it, and that would be like a really good place to start. But yeah, like learning your own chart and how it applies, and then and it is interesting to look at you if one has children, to compare their children's charts. Like that was one of the big things with human design, is for parents to better understand their children. So like if you're a generator and your kid's a manifester, they're going to process information differently. Like in hindsight, I was fortunate. My son's a manifesting generator and my daughter's a generator, so we all basically had that same function. So I wasn't imposing an unreasonable will onto someone that wasn't inclined to do that. So it did come together nicely. But a lot of source of parental conflict could just be not phrasing things right, or presenting things in such a way, or trying to make the child behave in a way that's unnatural for it. So the second thing to look into would be your children, your spouse. Like you might see your spouse has a lot of open channel or hanging gates that meet up with your other hanging gate and complete it. So when you're together, that one energy center is defined. Another thing that's not like a complete rule of thumb, like talking about relationships, but quite often someone with an open sacral, like a manifestor, a projector, or a reflector, which is very rare. I've never met a reflector, and I know like practitioners that have been doing it for several years. Only 1% of the population are reflectors, and that means all of their energy centers are open. But someone with an open sacral quite often has trouble sleeping with someone with a defined sacral, like their partner. Just the idea that they're receiving this energy and it causes a disruptive thing. There are types where it's actually recommended to sleep by yourself. Again, not a hard rule of thumb, and may not apply to everybody, but sometimes that inexplicable sleep disturbance can be that. And something I've never gotten into, and I've briefly read about, and every practitioner I've asked says the same thing, but they never dived into it. But there is a specific aspect that focuses with the way your energy is when you sleep and how it changes. That's like another like deep dive, but it might be something to investigate with an unexplainable sleep disorder or something like that.
Lots of ways to use it.
But, oh, yes.
So I'm just curious. As I'm looking at my chart, I see what you're talking about, right? Where you have the different numbers, right? Which I imagine correspond to either the design or the personality numbers there. Like looking at the ego center, for example. There's 4 numbers in the corner of the triangles. Oh, that's a little hard to see. That are just like written numbers, but then there's another one that's colored in.
Yes, the one that's colored in is one that's active, that's on your chart. Like I can't see the number from here. Like what is that number that's colored in?
That's a 51.
Okay, so that's 51. So like your I'm looking at your chart there. That's Venus on your personality side is in gate 51 or gene key 51. So that's why that's colored in. If the number's colored in, it's on your chart.
Okay.
And then if the line is only halfway off, that's referred to as a hanging gate.
Yeah.
So that 51, what is that? It runs to what, 25 is the number? I can't really see it in the little green.
25, yes.
Right. So for example, like when gate 25 is activated by a planetary transit, that will be like the channel will be energetically completed, and then it will put energy to the ego center. I mean, it'll always be the way it is on your chart, but you'll have access to an energy that you don't usually have. For example, like when a planet, and then if it's a planet, it's like the characteristics of that planet yeah, as through like traditional astrology. But that would energize it and kind of activate that channel. And by the same token, you may be with someone for whatever reason that has that channel. So you kind of are energized by them and work in such a way that, like when you're around that someone and it just like clicks and you flow well together, like quite often it could be, channels completing each other. So when you're together, it's like that you both have access to energy you don't normally have.
Can I share my screen so you can, just for the people that watch the recording later, so you can kind of point out what to look at in their charts for that?
Sure.
I think it'll be bigger than, is that better? Can you see that better than on this?
Yeah.
Did that freeze up my computer?
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
just so you can see it a little bit better than the backdrop of Tanya's computer. You can see where the numbers are on the.
Yes, I can see it. Sure.
Right, yeah, so I think, my interest is like learning how to understand how to read it, right? So when you're looking at the filled in numbers, so for example, like where the little hand is hovering, Jen has a 23, right, in
Yeah.
the that's colored in there, and then a half colored line going up to the 43 in the Anja. So that goes from throat to Anja, right? And so I
Right.
guess the
Yeah.
23 would show up on the personality side.
Yes. It's basically, yeah. You can go on the color code. I'm having it's real tight, but right. Yeah. So like on this chart, I guess it's like the purplish lines will be from the personality side. The other ones from the design, the pink.
Okay.
But the numbers on the personality and the design side are all the numbers that are colored in on the charts from both of them. It's just like the personality side determines the number after the decimal point determines the first number of your profile, because that's where the planets were when you were born, and the other ones are 3 months before. So I guess that's when you would start developing personality things. But they're both like of equal significance as far as like completing a channel. Like it doesn't matter if they're the same color or different colors as long as the channel is complete. And when there's a complete channel from one square or triangle to the other, that's what makes the triangle or square be colored in. That's what defines it, that it's connected to something else.
Right. So just as an example, that 23 here in the throat chakra, it looks like it responds to the design for, is that Jupiter on the left-hand side? So I see the 23.5 there, and then the pink line.
Yeah, I'm looking for it. Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So right. So like the idea that it's defined, and it's defined on both sides, right? It's just kind of hard to see. I'm on the phone, but right. There's
Right.
the 23 is on both sides. Yes. And you'll get that like a lot of the outer planets that move slow. So like 3 months before she was born and when she was born, the Jupiter was still influenced by that same like transiting in the same spot enough to like show up on the chart the same way. So yeah, like you'll have that where you'll have the same channel with like on my chart the line split where it's like kind of like one color on one side and one on the other within, but you'll have that same channel from both sides. So right, you do get that, yes. And
So this 23, as it's responding to Jupiter, just using this as an example, because the line going up to the third eye is only half colored, right, you see the pink,
Yes,
half
yes,
pink and then half open, means that anytime Jupiter changes a transit, that's going to be a new influence.
Yeah, yeah. More so, like the way it would influence specifically on the chart would be like when I'm just looking at mine for numbers. It's a little easier. Yeah, yeah. So like when gate 43 is energized like through a transit, then it would complete that channel. So there would be more energetic activity like from like the anja, the third eye to the throat. So it's like those open or undefined white centers will be energized like they're normally not. And then like in the case of Jupiter, like say like abundance, receptivity, and so it would receive that kind of like energy, and that would depend on what planet gate 43 was in, and but you would like just receive an access to energy that you don't normally have, like so for example, I have gate 23 open, but I have gate 43 defined. So like in working together, it might complete that channel. So then there's going to be more energy. Like I have both of those. Like I have the throat and the ajna defined. So it would like she would have more access to that kind of expressive and intuitive energy, just like through the interaction or the union through picking up the energy with, working with me with something like that. And that's of course if other things click and fall into place, but you do kind of complete the chat or energetically complete the channels. I mean, they stay the same, but you're just getting that energy that like facilitates the flow in that area. So it definitely helps to follow the transit. There's different apps you can get that'll update the transits daily, and that's the thing to do. Like if you have, because when they post transits, I don't have anything in front of me with that, and the one app is on my phone, which I had to use here now. But so like the chart for a transit is just like a body graph, and it would just have one column because of planets, because it's only the current planetary alignment, and the chart would look just like your body graph and have the transits marked, so you can kind of compare them side by side and see where things are completed. And okay, that line is completed, so now I have access to this kind of energy, and it's in this planet whose characteristics are or affect this. So it's kind of like just does flow nicely with that. It kind of gives you like a point of reference or something to follow, and to when there's that specific thing access, you can go and like look up the gene key and read the elaborate explanation as to how that affects things and where to place your awareness and what gifts to look for, which shadows to be aware of. So you can really take it like really deep and pick it apart, or it can just be worked with as a basic template. Like the simplistic thing of just following authority and strategy, but you can really I mean I like to deep dive into it.
Cool.
All of the numbers, there's like the number and then a dot and another number. So the number after the decimal is the line that we were talking about. But the number before the decimal, all those would correspond with a gene key. And there's a book that you can buy that has the write up for all the gene keys. You can go on the website, and some are free, some you have to pay for. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
But they're great reading, and they go in pairs, right? So like when we were talking about the incarnation cross, like it's two pairs of numbers. So like mine are 22 and 47, and then 26 and 45. The 22 and the 47 go together. So one is like forget what they are, but one is kind of the
the first one is the sun and the second one is the earth.
And the Gene Keys would call it something a little bit different. Like 22 is my life's work and 47 is my evolution. So to really manifest my life's work, I have to evolve my 47. Like that's my shadow work and what I'm working to overcome, to balance, to emanate my life's work. So they work in pairs.
So are you talking about, you're talking about in this case, the sun and the earth, like if you're looking at the personality chart? Do you mean both numbers from the personality side, Jen?
I mean, like, it didn't show it, let's see, on the view that I was just showing, the pairs, but you can see like the pairs in my incarnation cross. So like where it brings the 22 and the 47, those are pairs.
Right.
And the 26 and the 45, those are pairs. And if you were to read no, wrong way. This chart didn't necessarily show them in the pairs, but I guess here they 22 and
Yeah, there's the
47,
22 and the
26
47.
and 45. I don't know if that's true going all the way down. Gary might know.
For the incarnation cross is like the first two numbers are personality, the second are from the design side. That's where they get the incarnation cross. And yeah, it is like the pairs, like that's how he presents the gene keys but when you do study the transits, I mean there are transits for every planet, or so everything on the chart, every planet or all 64 gene keys will be, I mean, not they're correspond with the planet, so they won't be aligned all at once, but that is where that comes from.
Does anybody have any questions so far? Otherwise, I was going to ask different questions.
One thing I'd point out, like looking at your chart here, just like where it says gates, it's kind of like almost at the bottom of your chart, there's a list of all the activated gates. In yours, it's like 4, 5, 7, but those are all the colored in numbers on your chart. So another thing to study on your chart is to look up those in the gene keys because they specifically pertain to you. So that would be something to like further, like if you're specifically diving in and wanting to look onto your info. And what I do for my own study, and this is just me, is when I study the transiting gene key or gates, I also, and I do I Ching readings and study the I Ching extensively. So I also look up and study I have like many different interpretations, translations. So I'll look up that specific I Ching hexagram that during the transit of the gene key and study that every day as well to see the complementary and varied takes. So that's also a very, just another take on things and another way to interpret it, just another way you can really like deep dive in if it's something that you're called to follow.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about like design sense, motivation, perspective, environment, channels? What do all those tell you about yourself?
I can explain a little bit. I'm familiar with my own. So like digestion, mine is indirect, and I've had it explained. It's kind of like I do better not following a specific regimented like diet or meal plan or meal schedule. Also because like indirect, and it's I've read on it like extensively, like it's actually better for me to, and it's also does feel more natural for me to eat later in the evening, to have most of my intake, even though that's usually they say, oh, don't eat after sundown. But with my type, I actually do function better. And then you get into things like judgment is the sense, or motivation is guilt. And I guess it's kind of like judgment is more of like a sense of discretion, or the ability to like know things and ascertain things. Or environment, like my environment is wet kitchens, and it's can be literally that. It generally means I do better in a more humid than arid environment. And by kitchens, I actually do hang out in the kitchen a lot, but it generally means like a common utility area. So I'm not like one to sit on a couch, whereas I may be one to like hang out in a kitchen, a workshop, a area where where there's action, where things are moving. Um, and those are determined, all the charts don't have it, but a lot of times, like the charts at the upper end of the body graph, there's 4 arrows that are either pointing to the left or right. And they'll have to do with things like my upper 2 arrows point to the right, the left one meaning I work in an inconsistent thing. Like I don't like routine, I like variation. And the other one is the other upper arrow pointing to the right indicates that I'm receptive and kind of like figure things out as I go. The lower left arrow on mine is to the left, meaning I kind of am I actively manifest things through direct actions. But with the arrow on the right pointing the other way, I'm a non-specific manifester. So when I set an intention, I don't specifically say what I want. I vaguely go for the essence, the feeling, the general gist of and that's something like I really can't elaborate on anything more than my own with that, but that is and those arrows kind of indicate how those numbers are determined. There's like where you have those little numbers and then the smaller numbers next to your arrows. Somewhere like on that chart or where you download it, they'll give corresponding explanations. And that's where all those little like phrases like indirect digestion, sense of judgment, inner vision, motivated by guilt, all that comes from those arrows and numbers. Like there'll be a little key that'll break that down. Maybe not right there, but in a further explanation of it, like maybe on the site. But
There's like 275 pages in this report. It's a lot of information to
yeah. And okay, like at the very bottom there where your arrow is, where it has those channels, those are like the channels that are like energized. Like if you look at those numbers and then go back to your chart, that'll show you like the completed
26.
the completed channels that you have. And then you can go and look like in the book one book I had recommended, the Encyclopedia of Human Design, there'll be a page for each one of those channels that'll explain what that means and corresponds with and how that affects things.
So that's where like 26 going to 44. That's where the line is.
Right. That's one
half of
channel.
color. Yeah.
And then your other channel is it at the top of the chart?
I think it's 27 to 50.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, I see. Okay. And right, so like you would specifically look up those channels, and if you have the report, it would be in your report, and that'll explain that and what it means, and that's why those centers are energized, because of the connected between the two.
You see that, Tanya, where it's the lines that I have that are complete, they're color.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, very fascinating stuff. Lots of ways that we can use this.
Yes, I find it very helpful, and just continue to study it and learn. And like I said, I recommend, there's a lot of podcasts that come out weekly, and things you can download. Like I had mentioned Madeline Evergreen, who has a really good podcast, and she has a lot of free downloads. This is pretty much like it's an extensive, I just printed it, but it's an extensive report on the energy centers. So it'll give a good page and a detailed description, just really stuff to have and look at your chart right next to it and figure it out. So, yeah, you can really, really deep dive into it.
Very good. Well, that's helped me understand how to read it. I pulled it the other day, but I had a hard time. I mean, other than seeing how it mapped to the gene keys, which I'm already studying. It's just I wasn't sure. I wasn't familiar enough to figure it out in the 30 minutes that I gave it.
All right. All right.
Anybody
So
have
I do have another question. I'm just curious. So you and Jenny were talking about a lot about the gene keys and how the human design maps to it. Were these systems that were created separately or together?
It's like an offshoot. The guy who wrote the Gene Key book, Richard Rudd, was a student of Ra, the original human design founder. So it's focusing on, like in human design, they call the gene keys energy gates. So it's kind of focusing on that. And the gene keys is like another interpretation of the I Ching, the Book of Changes, the ancient Chinese oracle. And it's like the 60, they all correspond. Even every page has the hexagram on it. So it's really just elaborating on that, but it's all interconnected. It's like taking each one of those numbers and really just like breaking it down and really like deep diving into it, contemplating it. And so it's a supplement to it, or like an expansion on a specific aspect of human design. And then the Gene Keys puts it together. I've visited the Gene Key site and ran my profile, and it's very similar. And but I've really only just kind of contemplate the specific ones from the book and use that in my study. But it is another way to present this, and some find the whole Gene Key system very, resonates with them better or easier for them to use. And it's kind of a different take on the same thing. However you find it more helpful, no one's right or wrong. It's just different approaches. Like I was saying with Karen Curry Parker's quantum human design is a variation, but it's just like just that. It's just another way of looking at a different style of yoga, different style of martial arts, different church of the same religion, or however you want to compare it. But it's all based from the same point of origin, though.
So you can use them really as companions to give a deeper
yes,
understanding.
it's definitely complementary. Absolutely, yes.
in fact, like the incarnation cross in human design is the activation sequence that I said I'm doing the retreat for now. So I don't know about human design, but like the Gene Keys also has a Pearl sequence and a Venus sequence. So there's different ways of looking at how your chart maps and how those attributes of yourself work together for a particular alignment. Lana, you haven't gotten to say anything? Anything that you want to ask?
No, not
Question.
really.
Oh, Lana, sorry,
I
Lana.
just
Go ahead.
I just finally figured out after the website started giving me error messages every time I put my information in. So I finally figured out that I'm a projector. So I don't know what that really means, because I don't really know much about this human design stuff. So if Gary can share anything about projectors, that would be wonderful.
Yes, a projector's like a guide, or a guide, an advisor, and the strategy for the projector is to wait to be invited. Otherwise, projectors generally are like inspired and then will work on a project for a few hours and like very creative, and then need to rest. It's just like a different rest cycle. I'm just checking with my notes. I just seeing if I'm missing anything
And you
specific.
said it's orchestrator. You said projector, another definition or deciphering would be orchestrator. And Jen connected it to inner permission, inner invitation, connecting with your growth and with your kind like understanding how this world works. It would be include into that invitation your inner knowing. It's my understanding from what you were sharing.
Interesting.
Mhm. Right.
I
Like
could
I
s-
just
I could see
found
that.
some notes. Like projectors have a focused and penetrating aura. Right. So like the signature theme, like you're in alignment when you feel successful as a projector, and you're out of alignment, and you'd feel like bitter. The strategy is to wait for invitation. Here's something: how to receive more invitations. Yeah. So it's a key to have a balance between actively engaging your mind and getting enough amount of rest. And you're definitely a guide, and just like kind of need to own that, and knowing your own value. Like people will be like drawn to invite you to to give you that invitation.
Oh, interesting. Thank you for that.
Irene, were you going to say something before I call
Yeah,
on?
yeah. I have a question to you guys who already practicing, kind like including human design in your daily practice. So I have a question to you guys. How you use it practically in your daily life? That chart knowing, or maybe doing this chart more often than just having birth chart. So how it's assisting you in your daily life? This is my question. If you can share those who already practicing, who already working.
What I find with me, like understanding my type, it's enabled me to be comfortable with being more, or like less regimented in my personal habits, like my meal times or planning, um and also to be more spontaneous and less regiment, but just as consistent with my like exercise and thing. I'm heavily into like Tai Chi and yoga, and knowing myself like this has brought like more of a spontaneity or playfulness to things. I've kind of let go of rigidity that maybe I was conditioned to think this is how it is. You must be disciplined. You must do this, where I can still do the things I need to do, and authentically address my self-care without being like a drill sergeant to myself, having fun with it, kind of, instead of like being like the recruit in basic training. I'm like the kid in a playground. I'm still getting as much exercise, but it's fun. So like that's kind of something that I find like transforming, and like really, I mean, I'm feeling into my sacral as I talk about it. It's like that kind of a like lit up thing.
So it's kind of like confirmation, your gut knowing, your inner knowing, and that is allowing you more freedom in your acting in this world.
Yes,
Being
yes. Right. I learned to trust myself more. Like yeah.
I can
Thank you.
add from my perspective too, like, which I've looked at it more from the Gene Keys perspective, because that's the program that I started with. But like on the 22, which is my life's work, like the shadow side of that is like not honoring your emotions. And so I've learned to embrace more about how I feel and be honest about how I feel, and like what do I need to bring out, because I'm very reserved and very like, I don't know, most of the time you wouldn't know that I'm having a thought unless I express it, right? And so I've been more expressive about things to more honor that side of myself, and then looking at the lines that connect things, with being a 2, my natural state is flow. So like I don't have to prepare. extensively for everything. What I really have to do is just to allow myself to be in flow and just dance through situations, dance through life. And honestly, when I let myself give up control and I do just do things naturally, everything does work easier. So identifying what's natural to me and what's more of an adaptation that I've taken on, going back to what's natural to me, creates more ease for everything.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So in my understanding, it's like you are creating for yourself permission slips, just slits, sorry, just to be more opening for yourself and not so much at your influence of your shadow part of who you are, and at the same time like dissolving or transforming, integrating your shadow part working for you.
That's exactly right. That's the evolution.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I really like that. I just wrote that down. Permission to be yourself. That totally resonated with me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is what that orchestrator and that guy doing as a projector.
Yeah, that
You
was
see,
perfect.
yeah, this is how it works in our case of projectors. Waiting for invitation can be so hard and so tolling on us to wait, because we have these ideas, this kind like summaries, this kind like showing direction all the time. It's working all the time, but you have to be quiet because you have to wait for someone to be in need for that guiding.
Right. Yes. Yes. Like the way I've had it explained, like when a projector offers without being invited, it's like they're not heard, and that's what leads to the bitterness. So yeah, I mean, you just like exemplified the human design in action. Yeah.
It's actually, not bitterness in my case, but it's like putting yourself on a pause. But like you already mentioned in the beginning of conversation, that idea that is perfect in a moment, in couple minutes will be nothing for the moment. So this is what kind like I see our problems as generators. We have so many things to direct, and we just look at some stuff and we already know how it can flow to the best outcome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, but it's difficult for us to be in that state of being active all the time. So for us to find some additional activities to our major direction, major who we are, would be, I believe, very helpful for people who are generators to find additional activities.
Yeah.
Not
Yes,
just
I
being
would
the
think.
orchestrator. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you are a CG, a compulsive creator. And the advice that you're given is, okay, just slow down, get rid of stuff. It's not working for a CG. For a generator, it's not working.
Yeah.
You have to add, what can I add to my life? Only that will actually allow you to slow down.
Yeah.
And as you guys, sorry, Jen, go ahead.
Go ahead, Irina.
I just, another observation of what we were sharing during the session, it's like you guys see, if you're doing inner work, you become everything. You have your accent maybe on something like more emphasized projector or generator or whoever manifestor, but you are everything. You're becoming everything if you have your inner work done. And you worked with your shadow. So it's kind of like like you saying, Martina, being tuned into what's happening today in the world, and just use what you know about yourself, what your strong sides, what your already worked out sides, and just use everything and go with those changes, what is happening in the world, on earth and universe, and around you, of course, around you, your personal space.
And if
You know-
we were just tying this back to like another conversation, this is another tool for the human 2.0, right?
Yeah.
Getting
Yeah.
to that next phase. Go ahead, Martina.
What's helped me, or what I'm working with when I forget all of that, is that the reminder that everything in 3D is already the past. So everything that I've created is already the past, because it has its origin in a thought for a future.
Mhm.
So in order to remind myself of that, is that I have to redefine generation. The generator for me, in a place of unknowingness, where everything is unpredictable, now is I have to be totally undefined in every chakra, totally undefined, totally sovereign, not taking on other people's stuff, and observing the infinite possibilities from a unentangled observer perspective. And then realize that generation for me is choice. And as soon as I choose something and it goes into manifestation, it's already the past.
Mhm.
And that works for me to look at it from that perspective, because for me, the present moment now is no longer being present with what is, but being present with the infinite possibilities. And that gives me that scope that I can work with. Now, the only thing that I need to sort of bring into balance now is that there has to be a completion process at some stage, right? And that completion process and that maintenance process, that there is this level of maintenance that I'm so bad as this compulsive creator, because, you know, I just want to live in this infinite possibility. And what I realized has, for me, it's, I don't have to do this by myself. And this is where the community comes in. I need to add people to my life that enjoy the maintenance, that enjoy the comfort zone, that enjoy all of that, that freaks me out. And being in neutrality with that, without needing them to complete me, which is important, but having the gratitude for those people in my life, it brings it all together. I can be me, they can be them, and together we can create beyond what anyone by themselves could create. And this is why I think those things are just brilliant, because they give us the structure to recognize where are we and where are we going to go.
And they plant
And,
seeds, yeah, for ideas. Go ahead, Irina.
I just again see different possibility in what you are saying. You can expand those who you're kind of like defined around you as your team, and include, since we have internet, it's connection to entire world. So you can include possibilities what world can propose to you now, through knowing that a lot of people still using this kind of prediction, this kind of definition as human design. So you can include possibilities that entirety of this world proposing to you without even just being tuned into your closer team. Include possibility and kind of like see how you can unfold your tuning into unlimited possibilities, how you can connect and be practical today to ground yourself to today, what is happening in the world, not just flying in your knowing unlimitedness, about unlimitedness, but make it more practical.
Yeah, and it takes the judgment of the self away. It eliminates that. It's the knowingness is, how do I function, or how do I prefer to function? Because I think it's really important what you said earlier on. We can be everything, and we are parts of everything. I'd almost like to reframe this whole thing and not call it human design, but maybe call it human behavior chart, because the human design is not limited to any of that. Sandrine, yeah.
Yeah, what happened was very funny is that I did these rapid tests, and it came out that I'm a projector, and I was reading through the things, and I was like, wow, yeah, right. Yeah, I'm that. Yes, I'm that. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, that's interesting. And then the next day, when I wanted to go back and check again, because Martina and I, we were chatting with each other, finger chatting with each other. And I lost somehow the bookmark. And instead of going into history, I just, redid the test. And then it turns out that I'm not a projector at all. I'm one of these generators. I'm one of these generators because I somehow messed up something in a number or whatever. And then I was reading the profile, and I was like, yeah, that's me, definitely. So it was quite funny how I also found myself, or traits of myself, back in the projector seer thing. And now in the generator is really what I found very funny is about the food, what you also mentioned, the digestion. And for me, it's the hot food, and I adore hot food. But as I'm a pitta, I should actually not go into hot food at all. So yeah, but it is working with all these different profiles, and just like Martina was, because we have kind of the same crosses, right?
We are exactly the opposite.
We are exactly opposite. So it's really like, okay, we need to somehow cross-reference each other.
And this is why we met like this. We met at love at first sight. And I was like, when she told me what, she was like, are you joking? We just flip it.
I met my opposite on a Gene Keys call on Monday, where you have the exact same activation sequence but reversed. Yeah. Fascinating.
So when I was also, Martina, I was also a little bit thinking about this whole the stillness that we have been invited to, right? And I came across a very interesting, in my other endeavors, I came across a very interesting quote that was like, to being still like a mountain, but be aware or being reactive like a warrior. And I think this is really what we could be working with, the stillness of a mountain, but the reactivity of a warrior, not going into the battle of this battle, but like you said, with a generation of things. And maintenance, yes, that is something I totally got what you were going to, because I also feel that sometimes it makes me understand why I gave up on painting. Although I adore art, and I went through this whole intuitive art lessons, and I did a huge painting. And in the end, to close the session, I just took a black paint and I painted the whole thing black again. And I said, I'm done. And I'm done. I kind of cannot pick up another brush, and although I love it, it's like it's blocking me. Something tells me now, no, that is not the generation or the creation that you should be going further down that road. It's done. It's okay. You did it. You took out what you needed, and it's not for you to go and be the big artist, painter, or whatever. It hurts, I have to say, but okay. I'm listening. Trying to work through with it. So here it's now, although I'm crafting a lot and I'm working a lot with fiber and wool and do lots of things, but that is I think that's, for me, it's another way of just working through my thoughts whilst doing that craft. But yeah, I'm also looking for what is the next generative thing for me. Is it ephemeral? Or is it something that will be materialized and then it just stands there and takes up dust? I have no idea, which I also don't like, but yeah.
I'm in the
Well,
same.
I want to say something to the mountain, to the strength of stillness. Yeah, and that fits perfectly with your painting, because the strength of stillness, the way it is defined on the 52, the way I read it, was actually knowing when to take action and when to not take action. So, you know, the fact that you're saying never going to paint again, this is your knowingness just saying, okay, we're not doing this now. That doesn't mean in 5 or maybe next week you're going to start again, you know. And that's that, trusting your knowingness when to take action and when not to take action. And I think the other thing is with the etheric generation, I think that's really interesting. And that would be that's why I need to look at this quantum human design, what they're actually saying. Because the more etheric the more etherically we start working, as we are sort of getting less solid, you know, in this new integrating our light bodies more, there will be more creation. And I think what I'm saying is, don't just look for creation or generation of your work in the material side. We need to become more open to acknowledge and recognize our generations in the other dimensions.
I'm fully in that, you know, it's because this is, I think, where I'm leading into, and this brings back my work with the liminal. I was always and have always been fascinated by the liminal. The liminal in every sense, you know, you just have
What's a liminal?
The liminal is just like, you know, the border, the frontier, the horizon, the liminal, the spaces, the in-betweens, you know, you know, example, you have a house, you have a front lawn, you have the walking space, and then you have the road. And in between are these liminal spaces that are actually, that will give you different types of laws or whatever, things how you can, you know, develop yourself. On the road, it's a different act. And then there is the walkway, which is the liminal between the road and the walkway, and there you have to act differently. So I'm just using a very simple example, but the liminal for me is these hidden spaces of laws that suddenly change. Well, in this world, okay, but let's open that up to, you know, where you know, if we go into the etherical, maybe there is no limit, but I still think there is somehow, somewhere. So it's
just to being respectful of Gary's time, I wanted to make sure that we had a moment to ask Gary, like, what kind of sessions do you do, and how can people get a hold of you if they want to do a session with you?
Yes, I practice Reiki, quantum energy healing. I offer tarot and I Ching readings. I do feng shui consultations. I teach yoga, like mostly like private lessons. I'm my email is Gary Coppola, same as my name, at yahoo.com. And I have a Facebook page. I'm either Gary Coppola or Spearman's Mystic Chemistry. I work at the Sacred Owl and Salt Room in West Knoxville, and Enchanted Blessings in Maryville. That's Tennessee. We're locally East Tennessee here. Yeah, so you can contact me through any of those venues. If anyone in the Knoxville area wants to really have like a human design consultation, Lee Seabach, who has Your Abundant Design is her local business, and Katie Eads, Owl Professional Coaching, they're both people who come out to our various discussion groups. And anyone in the Knoxville area, we have discussion groups at the Sacred Owl and Salt Room and at Enchanted Blessings on a monthly basis, and that's a free event. There's one at Enchanted Blessings next Monday. You can just look on social media for that.
That's great. Thank you, Gary. Gary, thank you so much for joining us. I learned so much about human design and loved hearing you talk about how to map yourself and what different things mean and how to put it all into perspective. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was awesome. I really great group. I had a great time. Thanks.
You're welcome every Wednesday, any Wednesday.
Fabulous. I just want to say the recording is going to go out, and I'm going to put all your details, what you've just said, Gary, I'll put it on the recording. And thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen, for hosting this week. Huh? And we see you next week. Cheers, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Gary.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.